Hello, New Testament students. Welcome to week 14 in our class. We are coming to the end. We are in week 14 of 15. So next week we'll finish up with Revelation. You'll have your final exam and the class will be over. So congratulations on making it this far in the course and on all the work, all the good work that you've done so far. This week we're going to be dealing primarily with 1 Peter. You'll also be doing some reading on 2 Peter. You'll read 2 Peter as well, but we're going to really focus our videos and our discussion forum on 1 Peter. So our first objectives, there's going to be 3 different videos. Each one roughly correlates to each one of these objectives here. The first one is to be able to articulate in about a paragraph whether or not you think Peter had a hand or a mouth in composing the document that we call 1 Peter. As we will see in the first video, Peter as a figure sort of attracted a couple of different texts towards him in early Christianity. Some texts that were not written by Peter. It's quite obvious they're not written by Peter. But 1 Peter is one where the question is open. It very well might have been written by Peter himself, or it might have been written in his name. So we're going to present the options and sort of the both positions, the advantages and disadvantages of taking Peter as 1 Peter as actually written by 1 Peter and taking Peter as not written by 1 Peter but as written in his name, akin to Pauline pseudepigraphy, which we've talked about previously in this course. With respect to 2 Peter, almost all scholars agree that Peter did not in fact write 2 Peter. So even those who are pretty conservative when it comes to these things don't think 2 Peter was actually written by Peter himself. And those reasons are addressed in the readings for this week, particularly the reading from the textbook. So our second objective is going to be to talk about and be able to explain the kind of suffering that the audience of 1 Peter might have been facing. So as you read 1 Peter, I want you to sort of have your eyes attuned to the times that suffering is mentioned in 1 Peter. So sometimes it's mentioned explicitly, sometimes it sort of lies below the surface, but it does appear that the audience of 1 Peter is facing some kind of suffering or persecution. And in the second video for the week, we're going to sort of lay out what kind of suffering or what kind of persecution the author of 1 Peter might have in mind and the kind of suffering that the audience might be facing. And this objective is going to sort of carry over to next week with respect to Revelation as well, wherein we'll see that Revelation often also sort of alludes to the suffering of Christians in the audience of the book of Revelation. And then our third objective is to be able to explain how the household code in 1 Peter functions in a uniquely Christian manner. So we're going to be focusing a good bit of attention on the household code in 1 Peter, and there's a couple of reasons for this. One, it's one of these sort of things that 1 Peter is best known for. It's one of the sort of, you might say, the hot interpretive debates when it comes to 1 Peter. Is this household code that spans part of chapter 2 and into chapter 3 of 1 Peter, but also because these household codes are in other texts. They also show up in Ephesians and Colossians, and we did not have occasion to address them when we were talking about Paul because we addressed other things with Paul. So this stuff about household codes that we're going to talk about sort of equally applies backwards to some of the Pauline household codes in Ephesians and Colossians. So will be a video on household codes, sort of what they are, and we'll situate household codes in their cultural and literary context. We'll take a brief look at some examples of other household codes, both a Greco-Roman household code and then 2 shorter Jewish household codes that are roughly contemporaneous with 1 Peter. And then the sort of culminating reading for the week is an article by Dr. Karen Reeder, and it's really just a great piece of biblical scholarship where she deals with the household code in 1 Peter not only in its historical and cultural context, but also in the ways that it has been misused and abused in modern context, specifically around issues of spousal abuse. So she does a really great job of sort of navigating the different worlds of the text, the world behind the text, the world of the text, and then the world in front of the text, how the text has been interpreted and often misused in the modern church. So my encouragement to you is to read that article from Dr. Reeder last. So let that be the last thing that you read, and I've noted that on Moodle because it's in some ways it's heavy lifting, not only as far as its content, because it deals with spousal abuse, but also intellectually. You'll notice that Greek words are alluded to, and it really is a sort of a thoroughly academic article, but it's also accessible. She does a very great job of making it not too highfalutin that it's sort of not accessible to us. So all that to say, my encouragement is for you to read that last so that you have some of the background information about 1 Peter when you come to that article. So as to the things we're going to be doing this week, grade item wise, there are New Testament presentations on the horizon. The due date is April 20th for those, and some of you have signed up for a time to do these synchronously. There hasn't been a lot of students who've desired to do this synchronously, at least based on the sign up at the point that I'm recording this. And if more people sign up, that's great. No matter how many people sign up, I'll still hold those synchronous meetings. And if it's you presenting to me, so long as you're comfortable with that, we can do one-on-one presentations, and I'm very, very happy to do that. Those will be also open to other students as well. I'll send out Zoom links for those. But if it stands that only one person or two people are going to present during that time, we'll still hold them, but the time will obviously be compressed because we won't need the full time slot for just one or two presentations. So New Testament text presentations coming up. You can present synchronously or record, and those recordings I will make available to everyone else in the class as well. And then, as always, we have course notes in our forums, and the forum is really going to be sort of focused on Dr. Reeder's article and the way that she uses sort of elements of a number of the other things that we talk about and we address this week, how they sort of are folded in to Dr. Reeder's article, and sort of getting your take on that article.